Good morning, folks. Today I'd like to go through what we'll call part two of our image processing, where we took M33 and we processed it in Pixinsight, and then we finally saved it as a TIFF file to further process it in Photoshop. So today I have loaded the TIFF photo, into Photoshop. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to process it further to make it a little bit more refined and clean. We've got a pretty good base here. We've got some good coloration. We've got some good contrast going on. And we've got some nice subject orientation. What I'm going to do initially is to take out the noise and enhance the color, and then we're going to crop it a little bit further in order to get rid of some of these external detractions or distractions from the image and give it just a good look overall so we can put it up on Facebook. So initially my process is to take the base image and then to duplicate it, and that way I have something to have a reference to. So what we'll do is we'll hit Command plus J and we'll duplicate the image, and now we have something to compare it against. My initial job is to go up to the image and bring down the dark and bring up the light. So I'll go into image and I'll go to adjustments and levels. We'll look at the histogram. We see the histogram's all looking pretty good already, but I'm just going to bring it down a hair bit more on the dark side. So this particular dark here, as we bring it to the right, it will darken the darks. And then this center line, once we bring that up, we can bring up the mid-tones and verify that we've got some good balance here. So we'll hit OK, and this is where we do our first comparison. I take the layer that I created, the duplicate layer, and I turn it off and on, and we can see that we've got some difference in the image. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and we'll take a look at our histogram one more time. We'll go to adjustments and levels and see that we've almost got our darks up to the level where we want them. We brought the darks down a little bit, and I'm going to leave the lights alone. I think the lights are pretty good. We could literally take the lights out there, but I don't want to blow out the center here. If you look at the center here, we could blow out the center if we go too far. So we could go this far, and then we could take the darks down a little bit more and call that okay. At this point, I want to zoom in, and we'll look at the noise, and we'll use a plugin called Topaz Denoise for getting rid of the noise. So I hit my Z key, which is my zoom key, and I zoom in, and as you can see, there's a considerable amount of noise throughout the image. Let me go to my filters, go all the way down to Topaz Labs, and not everybody's going to have these plugins on their machine, but I have them, I bought them, I like using them because they are good tools for me for processing my images. So we go to Topaz Denoise, and it'll open up the program and give me my image here. We can zoom in once again using Topaz Denoise. We'll go to 200%, and we can see the noise once we get zoomed in. Topaz gives me 4 different options for noise reduction. Here is the standard, here's the clear option, down here is the low light option, and then the severe noise option. And what I can do is I can just click on those images and it'll bring back the original, and then I release it and it takes and applies the filters. So looking at this first standard one, there's still quite a bit of noise. Going over to the clear image, that's looking pretty good. I like that particular rendering. Down here to low light, It's a little noisy and there's some speculation going on here. And then the fourth one is nice, but it looks a little bit milky. You can see the midtones here are a little bit blah, but it still looks pretty good. Overall, I think that the option that I'm going to choose is clear. So I click on that. It highlights that particular rendition, and then I'm going to come down here and hit apply. It'll process it, takes about 5 seconds, and we've done, and we're back to our image in Photoshop. Now once again, I can turn off that image. We can see what the noise looked like previous. Once we applied the filter, it got rid of the noise considerably. So at this point, it's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and zoom out. We hit our zoom key or a Z key, and we hit the fit screen button, and it'll take the image back down to the nominal size. The next item I want to do is I want to bring out the coloration. Now this particular function is it's an older method, but it works really well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the image, the mode on it, from the RGB mode to an LAB color mode. I'm not going to flatten the image because I'm going to keep this secondary copy. And now with the image in the lab mode, LAB is luminance A and B channel, I'm going to adjust the curves on the A and B channel to enhance the coloration of the image without oversaturating it. So let's go to man alive, image and adjustments and curves. Sorry about that, I had a brain fart. So we now have our channels here. Remember, we're now in LAB. So we have L, which is lightness or luminance, A and B channel. We're going to go to the A channel, and we're going to draw in our curve, and I'll draw it into about 65, or this first line here. And then we'll draw the other line in to the same point to about 65. And one thing you want to do is you want to make sure that when you pull in your line, so to speak, that you do it evenly on both sides. Otherwise you misrepresent the colors and they become distorted. So we've done that to the A channel. We brought those curves in. Let's go to the B channel and do the same thing. Another feature, instead of dragging the triangles in, we can just go to the input here and change it to 65, and then click the other one and hit -65. And now we've done the curves adjustment in LAB. Let's go ahead and compare that. And as you can see, we've really made a significant difference in the image. We've reduced the color, reduced the noise, and we've enhanced the colors. So let's go back up to our image, go to our mode, and change it back to RGB color. We're not going to flatten it. And now let's go ahead and crop this in to get rid of some of these external image noise and clutter and everything like that. So we'll go ahead and we'll hit our Z key, and we will minimize, we'll zoom out a little bit so we can crop the image a little bit better. We'll go up to our crop tool here, just like we did in Pixinsight, and we'll bring it down to a point where we have just the image that we want. And we'll get rid of all that external fluff. I think we have it pretty well centered now. We've zoomed in on just the celestial quality of the image. We've got that in there. Let's go ahead and zoom back out and fit to screen, and we'll click on our top icon here to get rid of the crop tool, and there's our image. It's looking pretty darn good. One thing though, I'm not quite satisfied with the contrast. And here we can use another tool called tonal contrast adjustment, and we can use what they call the Nick color effects tools. Let's see if we have that there. We have the Nick collection here. We have Color Effects Pro 5. We're going to select that. It's another plug-in tool that I have, but we'll go down here and we'll use tonal contrast, which is one of my favorites. And when we click on those different filters, we have a change in our image. As you can see, that's certainly not something we really want to do terribly. So this first one goes from a fairly decent image to that, but it's not really good. So what we'll do is we'll drag down our opacity of that filter to about, we'll call it 15%. And then we can slide back and forth. We can see that there's been an improvement in the tonal contrast. And we'll hit apply to that. The Nick Color Effects, once it does a filter, it creates a whole new layer and it names it over here tonal contrast. So we can look at the difference between that. As you can see, we increased the color and tonality of the image. And as long as that meets our needs, which it does for me, I'm going to hit Command plus E to merge that layer with a layer below it. And now we have that completed process on our regular image. If we look at our original and our product, we can see we've got quite a bit of difference there. I'm also now, this color here is still a little bit too brown for me. I'd like to make it black. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my color sampler tool and I'm going to sample a color in the dark area, and I'm going to look at the colors here. Red is at 34, green is at 8, and blue is at 7. That indicates that in the background here there's a considerably larger amount of red than there is blue and green. The background should be neutral, which would mean that all three of these colors, R, G, and B, should be about the same. So what I'll do here is I'll go up to my image, go to adjustments, go to levels, and we have the ability here to pick the channel that we want to adjust. So let's go with red, and let's see if we can bring our red down a little bit more. And it brings out quite a bit of the blue, but if you look over here, you can see what we had originally was 28, and we're moving it down. If we move it down to where it is on the same level as the others, we have now a neutral background, and wow, what a difference we've made in that image. So let's hit OK. And you know, this may be a little bit too much for some people, but as you can see, what a bit of difference in that photograph. We've definitely brought out the oxygen in this particular image, and we still have a considerable amount of the hydrogen alpha. We can keep it like that, or we can step back and we can reduce that change. But personally speaking, I really like that. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this red here and I'm going to boost the red throughout the image. So I'm going to use a slightly different tool here. This is called the TK Actions panel, and what I'll do is I'll use the TK Actions panel, which is another plugin that you can use. I'm going to choose that red color, and we see that we have a little bit more red there. I'm going to expand that so that we capture all of the reds there in the image. And as you can see by this mask, we are capturing all of the various different points of red in the image. And what I'll do here is down here, I'm going to boost the saturation of that red to bring it out a little bit. And we'll hit OK. Here's the after and the before. You notice there's not a significant difference, but it brought out a little bit of the red, so we evened out that. We'll hit Command E to make the image complete, and we have the after and the before. As you can see, there's a considerable improvement in the image. To my liking, it may be not to everyone's liking, but I certainly think that this has been a considerable improvement over what you have. Anyway, that's as far as we're going to go today. I wanted to keep it short and sweet. I hope you all learned a little bit from this processing tutorial, and if you did, like and subscribe. We'll talk to you then.